Hey everyone, I'm Paul Amiski. In this video, we're going to show you how to build this table, the Hedge Hog, formerly known as the Asterisk. We did rename it. Hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's a fun build. Step 1 of the Asterisk table. Glue up your post, square up the post. Let's do it.
Next up, we just go to the table saw just to square up our other two edges. Now we're going to square up the ends with our festival miter saw. Now we're going to trace our template on our billet.
So with the lines we're tracing right now, Justin gave me a little tidbit. It's not crucial because once you start your cuts, all the remaining faces are going to be based off of those cuts. So you just do a good job of tracing it, but it's not a critical step.
Now we're going to set our table saw to 30 degrees. That's the angle for our crucial cut.
Justin leaves out the details. Use one of these bad boys. Magnetizes right to the blade. Tells you your exact angle. Best money I've ever spent in woodworking. No joke.
Okay, first step is we want to line up our first cut. This is the crucial cut so we can get everything rolling and everything consistent. Templates just to get it going.
Yeah. So you trace the template onto the center blank and then you line up the fence to one of the first cuts. Now we're going to be setting up to do the second cut, and you do have to adjust the fence again to your template line.
We've done our first two cuts. Now we can do our third cut, which is going to set the bar for all the rest of the cuts.
And you'll have to adjust the fence again?
Well, yes, this is last time we're adjusting the fence.
So all three initial cuts, you'll be adjusting the fence to match your template. All right, we've done the first three cuts. Now for the fourth cut, we don't actually have to move the table saw fence, and you're gonna have one pointed side. That's gonna be against the fence. We're gonna push it right through. I do like using my hands for this because of the feel that you get, because you are actually balancing on a smaller, fairly narrow piece of wood. With a push stick, I feel like it'd be a little bit easier to rock the piece, but let us know how you feel comfortable doing this type of cut. So we have one more cut, the fifth cut. We don't have to adjust the table saw fence, and it's pretty self-explanatory how you're going to put your billet in the saw because we nicely traced on there. I'm going to cut her off. Oh, cut's so nice. Okay, we got the hexagon cut out perfectly. We're now setting our table saw back to square, and we're going to be putting on a dado blade. We're going to run a 7/8 of an inch wide by 1/4 inch, Justin? How deep?
Yeah, we'll go 1/4 inch.
About a 1/4 inch. The joint itself is more for alignment and adds glue surface, but we don't have to go overkill on the depth. It's all long grain to long grain, extremely strong. So we're going to set up the dado blades, but we're not going to put in a full 7/8. We're going to be less than 7/8. We're going to run the post through the blade and then turn the blade around and run it again, and that's going to give us a perfectly centered dado, and we'll still be able to get our 7/8. All right, so if you haven't already noticed, we have a saw stop table saw. It's a 5 horsepower industrial, and it has amazing wrenches. But this isn't the coolest thing about the saw. This is what's the cool thing about the saw. This resides underneath the blade, and if you touch the blade with your flesh, this is gonna get shot into the blade and just really give you a nick, so you cannot cut your finger off with this table saw. Pretty exciting. Still practice proper table saw safety though. Watch out for those kickbacks and use a push stick. And if your saw has a riving knife like ours, make sure you put the riving knife in, unlike us. So if you didn't already spot that, yeah, we weren't using our riving knife. So we've got our dado blade in the table saw, 1/4 inch in height and 1/2 inch in width. You were able to put your billet against the fence, line the edge closest to the fence to your template line. We're then gonna run the post through, keeping the same face down, rotate the post 180 degrees, run it again. This will give us a perfectly centered dado 7/8 of an inch wide. So let's get to it. These are CNC cut out, but we're gonna go through the process right now of taking the template to these pieces without the CNC and without really any pattern special tools at all. Basically bandsaw, sander, table saw, that kind of thing. So let's go do that now. So we have our templates for the top and bottom. We have our ash dressed to the thickness that we need. And we're just gonna put this long straight edge along the outside of the board. And we're gonna alternate how the template goes down so the thinner side is opposite, you can kind of see. And basically we're just gonna rough cut this to length. I pretty much just wanna cut this right here. And then we're gonna be tracing this, so let's do that. So cool, we're just gonna lock this down and we're gonna square up both outside edges. Not a usual thing. Normally you would joint one side and go to the table saw for the opposite side. We don't need them to be parallel. We're just gonna clean up both sides here on the jointer. So we have our templates. We just need to lay them down. I put the one long edge flat against the outside of the board. And then same thing here. And it's pretty self-explanatory. We're just gonna trace it. We're then gonna go to the bandsaw and clean it up. So let's do that now. Bottom. Up. So that's it, we got it traced on. We're gonna go to the bandsaw now. We're gonna cut very close to our line. Then we're gonna be able to clean up most of this with the edge sander. All of these will be done with the edge sander. This is the simplest way of doing this. If you're gonna be doing a one-off type of project, which is what we did with this table, it's very easy to create your templates, trace them, cut them on the bandsaw, and just clean it all up with a sander. It won't be as accurate as a jig, but it'll be pretty darn good. All right, we're gonna go over to the edge sander now. Clean up our cuts, clean up our joints. You can see I specifically leave more wood at this 90-degree joint because it allows me to be a little bit more precise at the edge sander, that you're gonna be balanced as you come into that line. Whereas the other ones I kind of cut a lot tighter. I always try and challenge myself though to make the best cut possible. You can see I like to leave just a little bit of wood between your cut and the actual part you're making. So we're gonna clean this all up at the edge sander now. So here's a recap of what we've done so far on the asterisk table. First off, we created the center post. We then have taken our plywood template, put it on our dressed material, traced it, went to the bandsaw, cut out all the edges, and then we went to the edge sander and we cleaned up all the edges. We're left with just a little bit of rough area that you can't get to with the edge sander. I like to clean up with a hand sander, the RO 150 from Festool. And then after glue up, we'll be cleaning up the curve where the two legs join at the spindle sander. We're gonna glue up the top and the bottom pieces using the Festool domino. Here it is here, the Festool domino. What we need to first create is a clamping caul. Basically, if I take a clamp going across here like this, and I try and tighten this, the clamp's gonna wanna just slip off. Not a good scenario. So we're gonna actually put, usually I do a piece of 2x4 or something I have laying around. I like to put a square across this joint, and then it's gonna show me basically where I'm going to trim this to, depending where you want the pressure. So I'm gonna kind of go like this, and then I'm gonna run that straight across. So I'll be clamping this to the leg, as well as cutting that out there. There we go, that's how I was, something like this. We'll go like this, like this. So then we're gonna have this clamp to the piece and it's gonna pull it in nice and tight. So let's cut those out and get this thing glued up. I can't juggle. So see, yeah, this goes straight across now like that. So it worked out actually. Let's put this like this. So now I can apply my pressure and it's going to, I'll use a regular clamp on there. Closes up, good, that's perfect. We made our call. We have a pretty slippery surface. We're gonna add some 80 grit sandpaper to it. For just very quickly here, we can throw on some spray glue. Usually like to work on top of something like this. There we go. And you want to let that sit for a minute or two. While we do that, we can take our pieces and just line up the very back edge. Oh, so good. We're going to be using an 8mm domino. We're going to stack 2 of them in height, and these are 80mm long, so we're going to go 40 mils into each one. You can measure, but basically I'll usually just look over the piece. We need to remember we're going to have a slight tongue in here, so we're going to be biased a little bit forward. Pretty much something like that. And then I just kind of move this and we just make a line, that's it. That's where they're going to go. If this was the top down, I'll probably put one at, let's say 15, even 10 would, yeah, probably 15 and 35. And that will be here and here. Quick grips. I never used them before I was a woodworker, and now I use them every day as long as I'm doing woodworking. Super simple, right there like that. Very important step though, very, very important. Plug in the shop vac. You won't get anything done. So this is the Festool domino. You could use either the big one or the small one. This is the 700. Basically, if you don't know what this is, it's a biscuit joiner on steroids. It creates a floating tenon. This beach tenon here, nice and hard. We're gonna put 2 of these in here super quickly. Watch this. I can adjust my height. I said 15. I'm gonna see where we are on there. 15. We could probably go up 1 actually. So very simply, I can go here, go to 10. I'm happy with that. We're gonna be tight. And so there we go, that's at 10. And then our next one I think is going to be at about 30. Line it up to the same line, just like that. So we got our 2 holes, 40mm deep, and now we're going to repeat the same process in the other side. So super accurate. So I biased it a little bit this way because we're gonna have a tongue on there. And very, very strong. So now we can go forward with the glue up, just like that. We got the sandpaper on the cauls. We got the domino holes created. We have our dominoes. So we're gonna get to it. I like to just get her nicely slathered on there. Love the silicone brush here. And then as I tap in the domino, I always like to bottom the domino fully out. So you can see it's going to be sticking that far into the next piece of wood, how strong this is going to be. I like tapping it a few times because you're going to get a little bit of glue come up out of the hole. And that really helps spread the glue around. So that's beauty how that is. A little bit heavier on this side. Nothing wrong with that. Let me put a little bit more here. All right, pretty happy with that. Let's get it put together. Can let the clamps do the rest of the work. So we're gonna get this guy on here like so. Great. That's why I keep the clamps close to the bench. And this is why you always do a dry clamp, because it gets a little hectic sometimes here. Get a little bit more pressure on these now. Okay, I think that should do. We have our clamp as I fall over. And hopefully starts bringing it in. I'm going to put another clamp here up at the tips, just to keep the pressure even. Oh yeah, see it coming together now? Get right in here, check out. That's what we want. We want that squeeze out. So I got a little bit of pressure on the tips there, a little bit more on the back side. Oh yeah, see that? Come right out. Nice squeeze out. You can actually see it come out of the pores. So it's gone through the pore and come out of the wood there. You see that little thing? So perfect. Glue up the rest of the sections. Then we're gonna move on to just cleaning up this back joint, and then we're gonna cut our tongue, which is gonna fit our posts. I don't know where the posts are. All right, Sebastian found the posts. So these are the 6-sided posts that we already made. We'll cut a tongue that fits in here shortly. When you do this glue up, it's not completely critical that this back joint is perfect. This won't actually be it. We designed this table in a way that we can take both tips of the table here and then clean this joint up at the table saw after this glue up. So obviously you want it decent, but it's not critical that it's perfect. I'm off by, I'd say, a 30-second. Our pieces are out of the clamps. We just finished the glue up that has the 2 dominoes in there. Now we had a little extra meat at this joint. We have some extra meat here, here, and then also in here. Step 1, we ran it through our wide belt sander. You can also go through a drum sander, and you can also just hand sand to clean this joint up. We went to the spindle sander, cleaned up our inside joint. This here, we just edge sanded it straight to that line. Next up, because we have extra wood both here and here for the height of our table, and we're not necessarily perfectly square with this joint here, Justin's gonna take over and show us what we're doing.
So this step, like Paul said, is we're gonna be trimming down the legs. So we got our exact dimensions, and so that we are perpendicular to our billet. Now what's crucial about this step is we need to make sure we reference everything off of the top corner here. Reason for that is when we glue up our billet to all our legs, that's gonna be the critical part where everything lines up to. So from that corner to the top of the table, well, to the top of the legs, that's gonna be all the same all around. And then from the top of the leg to the bottom of the leg, we need to replicate that on all the pieces so everything's flush, flat, and not gonna be rocking around.
So how did you decide to make it repeatable?
So the way we're gonna go about it, and feel free to comment if you have any ideas on different ways to do it, because there's 100 different ways to do stuff. We've got a line here on our fence, which we're lining up the corner with. Now always mark all your pieces so that you know which is the top, because you always want to reference the top. If you do it at the bottom, it's gonna screw everything up. So you line up.
And basically you just want to set it up enough that you take a little bit of material.
Exactly. That's all you want with it. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be marking our line. We'll be marking a line there. The next step after that, we make our cut, bring it over to the fence. Because this will be perpendicular, your foot will be able to run along the fence. You'll be able to have a parallel cut with the blade so that everything's all square and works in with each other.
So it's very simple. If you want your table to be 27-inch total height, you're just gonna set your fence to 27 inches. I like to slide this over, register it against the fence. I'll just slip the fence away, then like to make that cut. You just don't want to have anything binding in there. And you can easily use your measurement right on the fence to make that cut very repeatable.
Yep, exactly.
So we're gonna go through and do that right now.
Yep.
we're gonna need a rabbet on both edges of this, and we don't know the exact size really. So we're gonna put our dado blade in larger than we need. We're gonna have it hidden under a sacrificial fence, and we're basically gonna be able to get it close, preferably cut it a little bit big, and then we can adjust that fence until we're just right. So we're gonna keep throwing the dado blade in now, and then Justin's got some work to do. He's gonna make some tight fitting joints. All right, so we put on a sacrificial fence that can hide some of our dado blade. We got more dado blade in there than we need. Set the height. Obviously we can just use the billet that we've had. We like to just pretty much put it on there, raise the blade into there until we feel it, and then we will actually cut a little test piece and then double check our depth. Yep. Then from there, we like to set it up and actually run one of our pieces through a little bit bigger than we need, and we can sneak the fence over, cut again until we have a nice tight fit all the way around, right?
The trick is to slowly approach it, because if you try to nail it on that first cut and you take too much off, it's game over at that point. You got to start fresh. So it's better to take your time with it than to try to just do it in one shot.
So our center post is based off our template. Depending on, you know, little intricacies of how you fabricated, you might have a larger shoulder here or smaller shoulder. Ours happens to be 10 millimeters. We set our dado blade to be about 9 millimeters off the fence. We're then going to run one of our legs through, create the tongue. In theory, the tongue will be too large to fit into our dado. Two options here. Very carefully, we can bump our fence over some more and make that tongue a bit smaller to fit. Second option, old hand tools. You can use a shoulder plane very simply to then work it in until it fits nicely. Totally up to you how you want to do this step.
So as you can see, we're a touch big on either side, which is what we wanted to go for. So now we're just gonna tap the fence over just that little bit and work our way over to that mark.
Okay, so as you can see at the table saw here, very quickly, efficiently, and repeatable, we can cut these rabbets in our leg pieces to fit our dado of our center post. Now you don't want this fitting too tight, because when you apply the glue, it's going to create headaches, the wood's going to swell, and you're going to have to hammer this together. So you do want a nice tight fitting joint, but don't go overly tight.
Yep.
Next steps?
Next steps, we're gonna cut our billet to length. It's a little bit long right now. We're gonna do our final sand of everything, and then we'll do a final glue up.
Nice. So we just had a little quick discussion about you know, how we're gonna align this up vertically and glue these all together at the same time. Now you could, we're thinking we're gonna put a little dowel registered in here, and then it's gonna have a mating hole in this piece. And then that way when we do the glue up, at least it's kind of there holding it and helping us. We'll have a little bit of shimmy to be able to get it exactly where we want. And very simply, we're able to drill one side and put in a dowel center. This is a dowel center. And this will fit into the hole for the dowel on the one side. You can then place your part and push it against this dowel center. It's gonna make a little tiny little mark where the other side needs to get drilled. You drill that side, and then the two pieces should mate nicely. Not expensive, no. Which is nice. I actually use dowels a lot in my younger years.
Way back when?
Way back when, he says. Holy moly. But I use these a lot. I didn't have a Festool domino. I do love the Festool domino because they have like a rectangle instead of a round kind of situation. But for this, we don't need to go over the top. We could use a domino for doing the same thing. Probably a little bit harder to figure out.
It would be a little more difficult for this situation.
Certainly possible, but we wanted to show you this way of doing it because I think it's a little bit more accessible to most woodworkers. So we got a dowel center, we got a dowel, drill some holes. So we're gonna get on with that.
So what we're looking at here is we're gonna drill our first hole for the dowel. So we can put our, I forget what Paul called it, but our dowel hole finder, plop it in, line it up with our billet, so we can drill our next hole. Nice. The main reason why we're putting it in the spot that we are is that when we put our billet on now, so we put the hole in the bottom. When we put our billet on, the top and bottom line up, we want to line it up with what our actual top is. So that's where we want it. So what I'm going to do is angle it from the top and press down at the back where the finder is. What that'll do is make it so our dowel is in the exact spot that we need it. Little taps. As you can see, we've got our hole right there. So we can drill the other half of our domino hole. Dowel hole, not domino hole. Too used to festival. All right, let's just see how we did with that. Yeah, and as you can see, we're lined up perfectly where we want to be. So when we do our glue up, it'll line itself up, and we just got to focus on the pressure. Okay, now we're going to do this 5 more times because we've got a total of 6 legs. I'm going to shoot you back over to Paul now.
Hello everyone. Thank you Justin for adding the dowels. Paul gets to do the glue up now. The stressful glue up. 6 legs, tongue and groove. They fit nicely and it's super strong already, the glue up. We got a lot of long grain to long grain. The thing is, it's got these 6 legs and we want them registered at a certain spot on this center post. So it's difficult to get them to stay, really. So the initial table we did, we've done one of these bases so far. What it was basically we were gluing two legs per day. So it was a 3-day glue up. In this one, I was just mentioning to Sebastian now, one thing I'm good at is fabricating one piece of furniture, and if I get to fabricate it again, kind of improving on the process a little bit. That's one aspect I really enjoy about being the owner of the business, being the woodworker, doing the woodworking, selling the piece of furniture to the customer. You're in full control along the whole way. Sam Loof always made a point of this too, that you have your designer and the other person making the piece of furniture. If they're totally separate, there could be some hiccups along the way. Now if it's joined as one person, you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more freedom to adjust your design, adjust how the piece is being made. In this situation, I thought, let's add a little dowel in here, one on each side, and there's also a matching hole on the leg itself. Very, very simple to do. We just drill in one side, we have a dowel center that then fits in that hole, and you're able to just easily, boom, put it on there, register it, mark it. You guys just saw Justin do that. The other thing is, it's very inexpensive. The dowel is super cheap, the dowel centers are super cheap, all reusable, and really if you're doing joinery too, this still can create a strong joint. You don't need a festool domino, anything fancy to get that done, which I didn't have for many, many years during my business. So it's time to glue up though. I did dry fit it. I was gonna kind of fake that for the camera, but I did dry fit it, so I know myself, I'm able to put this together, and this time I'm gonna do it with glue. So here we go. We have a certain amount of working time. I don't want squeeze out coming out my top. Now we have tape on our pieces so we can do all the shoulders, and preferably nothing really coming out the bottom either. So I'm basically gonna glue the center at least more than 6 inches anyways, something like that. Basically up to the dowel, or down to the dowel, because that's the bottom. Now everyone's obviously gonna ask, hey, what kind of glue are you using? I do sell this glue. Oh no, look, no name bottle. This is Fix. It's called their D3. I like this glue because it is a little bit thicker than typical glues, so it kind of stays in place. I really like with my Maloof joints, when I put it on there, it doesn't run away because you have a lot of vertical surface. And it also dries translucent. I like that it dries clear. That way, if you do have a little bit more of a glue line, which of course we don't want, but if you do, it's not going to be as noticeable. So being fairly liberal here because we're taped off for the squeeze out, we're just staying away from the very top and very bottom. A lot of glue surface, we got 2 shoulders, 2 dowels. I'm making this very difficult for Sebastian to edit. And I'm not rushing to get this done, but you certainly don't want to dawdle. It only has a certain amount of working time, but doing the dry clamp like I did, super important. I'm gonna take a little bit of the guesswork out of the whole situation. I think I'm pretty much glued. There's a lot of sides to it. I think because I'm nice and heavy on here, I'm not going to glue on the other side of the leg. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be darn good with this. We got a lot of surface. Okay, stop talking, Paul. Get down to business. So Justin labeled everything here. So I need BFT apparently. There it is. So in theory, I don't want to get glue on our nicely sanded legs. This should dowel into there like so. Great. BCT. You see, got it. BCT goes in here. Let's see. Okay, we're getting there. Yeah. See, once you have them all in, it kind of just wants to stay. Let's see if it will. This could be disaster.
Okay.
Okay, they're all in.
Okay.
They're all in. I'm excited. Check this out now. Band clamp. Whoever said woodworking wasn't cool. The dowels are there for vertical alignment. I got this to kind of give me a little bit of soft cushion. Oh, it's a jumpy one, eh? There we go. Okay. Okay, she's squaring up. Shoulders nice and tight there. Yeah, so you just gotta square these up a little. Okay. I don't necessarily think it needs this, but it's actually nice. They're kind of a self-squaring joint because everything's so straight. Yeah, I just figured this might be a good idea. And I'm not going crazy on this pressure. I'm just closing out the shoulder there if I can see one. It's pretty good. And this one here can probably go. Oh, look at that. That one needs nothing. Good, actually. I got squeeze out there in each center shoulder, so that's the important part. Super happy with all that. It's good. Always. Yeah, I'm just trying to see that they're like straight in line nicely. And they look pretty darn good. Because the joint really squares up, right, with the shoulders. That's why. So it's a very mechanical. Yeah. It's gonna kind of be in the place that it's supposed to be in. So that's it. Not touching it anymore. I'm super happy with that. So that's it. Busy day. Busy day. We got a lot of work done. The asterisks. So that's it. I really hope you enjoyed the build. We're going to be featuring more videos like this if you want. So let us know below. By the way, you can purchase templates for this from my online store, CanadianWoodworks.com. We have digital, paper, or laser cut. So you can buy one that you print out yourself. You can buy the paper templates. My lovely wife Amy will get them mailed off to you. Or you can buy already made templates, laser cut. Amy will also be mailing those. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. If you've liked this, you know what to do. Smash that like button and comment below. Until next time, make it a great one.